it's really, I guess, kind of a lot of what we do, where we try to find and identify stuff that the crypto community is interested in that can raise money for nonprofits, rather than trying to just take traditional nonprofit fundraising systems and communications and just hammer it down the crypto community's throat. So like the live stream concerts, these poker tournaments, we did something called Bitcoin Tuesday, a lot of interesting communications around it.
Layer 1 is a podcast and community dedicated to helping you master all things crypto. We'll be bringing you the best interviews with project executives, technical analysis for trading of the most popular cryptocurrencies, and insight into what's actually happening behind the scenes.
As you join us each episode, you're going to hear about tokens, fundraisers, investments, and even crypto conspiracies. But please remember that nothing we say should be considered financial or legal advice.
Come join us on this journey, and welcome to Layer 1.
Alrighty, everybody, we are back with yet another Layer 1 podcast episode for you guys. I hope everybody is doing well amidst continued quarantine and continued chaos in the crypto space. We've got Bitcoin halving coming up and some other fun things going on. But today, a very interesting guest doing some awesome things in this space. Before we get there, of course, Q, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. I'm handling quarantine pretty well here. I see you're wearing the Penguins jersey today, so I got to give them a shout out. We also are about to have a discussion with another Virginian in the crypto space, which is like blows my mind. I don't meet a lot of them, but we have Alex Wilson and Pat Duffy from the Giving Block, both co-founders. This should be a great conversation. We took part in their crypto charity poker tournament, which was really a lot of fun, but we're going to talk a lot of other things as well, crypto donations. So we'll talk about the crypto markets and things like that, as well as what they're doing, in the crypto space with the Giving Block. So without further ado, I don't know who wants to start. We got two in here. So whoever wants to start, Alex, we'll start with you and we'll move to Pat.
Sure. So Pat and I are the co-founders of the Giving Block. There's a little bit of background before getting into crypto. I was kind of your traditional management consultant. Like everyone says, went down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, really got sucked in, especially around the time of the 2017 bull run when, prices exploded. Kind of dragged Pat in a little bit. And yeah, I'll let Pat explain the rest.
Yeah, I spent the year before Alex and I started trading on a personal level, talking people out of cryptocurrency, like aggressively. I can remember.
What was your pitch?
Dozens of I was listening to Schiff and a lot of other people. I'm like, it's not backed by anything. And we just aggressively get into arguments. And then Alex had me read the white paper, started trading a little bit, and then did a full 360. And then a year later, more or less, I was talking to people and they were like, you spent a lot of time talking me out of investing and then started a company. So they felt a little misled. But I was at the Lupus Foundation. The price ran up at the end of 2017 while we were trading. We saw a couple $100 million get donated in literally 2 weeks. So we tried to set up the Lupus Foundation, get in on the action. Obviously, my trading beginning of 2018 wasn't as good. But by then we were working out the kinks in the setup, and we figured we could bring it to other nonprofits and scale it into a company.
Yeah. So what did you guys do as you started the Giving Block? Give us a story behind how that came about. Were you guys working together at any point outside of crypto? I know you guys said you kind of got in together, but what were you doing kind of outside of crypto that brought you together at the Giving Block, and how did that get started?
Yeah. I guess I can take just because I was at the Lupus Foundation. The big idea was Alex was trading, got me into trading. We both went to school together at Wake Forest. So that's how we knew one another. Both were in DC. But yeah, I aggressively tried to be competitive with Alex when it came to trading. We were doing a little bit of that. And then we ended up finding an application, which is fantastic because I was horrific at picking ICOs and companies, whatever else. But yeah, by sandboxing it at the Lupus Foundation, we figured out it's not just the setup. There's educational hurdles. There's auto conversion. They don't want price volatility. And then there's a matter of like actually engaging the crypto community. How do you get in front of that audience? Because you can slap it on your site, but no one was getting found. So like half our clients now were nonprofits who already were set up to take crypto, but ended up hiring us anyway because they figured, okay, we need community engagement aspects. But yeah, it became a company through, I'd say, a little over 6 months of sandboxing at the Lupus Foundation, developing educational materials, the actual technical backend. And that's kind of how we ended up having a product to where we thought, okay, we can take this elsewhere.
Got it. Got it. That's awesome. It's funny. We talked to obviously a handful of folks in the space, and everybody at some point seems to jump back to that crazy time in 2017 and 2018. You mentioned you guys were trading it a little bit. For those who maybe weren't a part of the industry at that point, what was that like? Q and I both worked at ICO Alert at the time, so we were deep in the ICO space. I know you said you weren't as good as at picking them. I don't think many were. But just as kind of some general context, right? It was a crazy time. What was kind of going on for you guys from your perspective during that time?
Yeah, I mean, if you were just buying crypto for the first time in, the last quarter of 2017, you basically couldn't lose money. You could just kind of pick anything, especially you could just go in the CoinMarketCap site and just pick out 5 randomly, and you probably would have done all right as long as you sold before, like mid-January 2018. But it came and went really quickly. So, you could have, I don't know, tripled your money in December and then lost it all again in January.
Right.
So I think we saw a lot of that. So I think a lot of people who joined in kind of the last couple of months of 2017 got burned. Unless you started earlier in 2017 before things really got crazy and had a better feel for the landscape. And, I think what it taught a lot of people is you've got to have some sort of plan or goals where you're going to be taking profits along the ways, or some sort of way of reducing your risk along the way. And a lot of people, I think, just thought it would go on forever.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear how education kind of works alongside what you guys are doing at the Giving Block in donations in general, because I one of the first things I do is go to YouTube, see what kind of material you guys have out online, try to learn more about what you guys are doing. And a lot of what you guys are doing is education, right? It's like sitting people down and explaining at the base level what blockchain is, what Bitcoin is. So how does that intertwine together? What the work you're doing at the Giving Block with educating the public about blockchain and cryptocurrency?
Yeah, I guess there's 2 layers to it. One is educating the nonprofits, and then 2 is the nonprofits becoming these really valuable weapons when it comes to crypto adoption in terms of educating the public. So like Save the Children, for instance, now that they're actively fundraising crypto, that's 2.8 million Twitter followers that are getting crypto-related messaging and getting comfortable with the idea. In terms of educating nonprofits, I think we found out, not quickly, but we eventually found out that it's what you don't talk about versus what you do talk about. So we wanted to explain everything. And then you open up this huge can of worms where it'd just be like, so they'd be like, explain the mining thing again. We'd be developing, out the network, and then 51% attacks. And we're talking about like how it gets more secure as it's getting, and then we're going through all of this. And then eventually Alex and I are working on an educational presentation. And we arrived at this point where I was like, what is Wi-Fi? And we just started rattling off ideas. We were like, what is Bluetooth? How does a combustion engine work? Like, what's happening in a microwave? And we were like nothing that you're trying to sell to people and like get people to grow into. Like, no one even knows how their accounting software works, like for traditional monetary systems. So it's like, we just realized we were unpacking this whole can of worms. And we'd end up with, in every one of those educational presentations, one diehard person with like 2, 3 a.m. emails where they just couldn't stop reading because we dove in so deep. But now we have a much higher success rate in terms of everyone being comfortable. Nonprofits aren't investing in it. They're just receiving it. And we just kind of figured out the checkpoints as we went.
Got it. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. It's funny. As you guys are going through and doing what is definitely needed, right? Education, whether you're buying cryptocurrency or just want to learn about it in general. If you're on the more financial side or the technology side, education is a giant underpinning that a lot of people miss. So props to you guys for doing that. But also at the same time, still kind of, spreading the good word and getting people interested and turning people into those hyper passionate crypto folks like the 4 of us are. So as you guys look out today past, founding the Giving Block, where does charity and crypto sit today within the crypto space, and kind of where do you guys see it going in the future? Because I think it's something that everybody's aware of. Crypto folks are aware that they can use their cryptocurrency to donate to charity, but maybe they don't get into the details of how that has grown since 2017 or 2018. So what are you guys seeing today?
Yeah, I think actually you'd be surprised by how few crypto users actually think about donating to charity with their crypto, because there's actually a ton of education we're doing too on the user side of things to help them understand the tax incentives of donating crypto. So most people don't realize that in countries like the US and a lot of other countries, since the IRS classifies it as property, that means when you donate to a 501c3 charity, you don't have to pay capital gains tax on that donation, and you get a deduction on your taxes. So that's usually, allowing you to donate, let's say 20 or 30% more, and the nonprofit is keeping that full amount then, right? Because you're not paying tax on and then donating a smaller amount. And because the nonprofits are nonprofits, they don't pay tax on it either. So I think there's a lot of education still to be done to make people aware of that. Because right now people are so hesitant to, spend their Bitcoin or crypto on anything, right? They want to hold on to it and have as much as possible. But in the case of nonprofits, that's the one area where it makes very logical sense to let's say you're already supporting a charity with your credit card, I don't know, $100 a month or something. You could donate $100 in appreciated Bitcoin every month and just repurchase that amount of Bitcoin, basically a tax arbitrage, where you're not losing the amount of Bitcoin you have, but you're actually saving money on taxes in the process, a lot more than you would if you were donating with a credit card.
Got it. So I'm sure folks can do that through the Giving Block, obviously, right? I mean, what is essentially the Giving Block doing to make it easier for a lot of these charities to accept crypto? Obviously, the first thought that comes to a lot of folks' mind, I imagine, who are running these nonprofit foundations is, okay, well, just the other week I saw Bitcoin drop from 10K to 8K or something like that. And how do I as a nonprofit kind of lock in that charity piece? So where do you guys fit in, and what can a crypto user or investor, as well as this charity foundation, do to set this up and work with the Giving Block?
Yeah. So there's a front end and a back end component, and then there's kind of the donor side and the nonprofit side. So in terms of like what's going on the back end, auto conversion out of cryptocurrency is something pretty much every client we serve does. So there's people like UNICEF who are holding on to it. But yeah, there's horror stories, obviously, of some people like Internet Archive in 2011 got 2,700 Bitcoins donated to them, sold it to an employee who held it. So they got $5,400 because it was $2 a unit at the time. So they don't sell, obviously, because they've seen it go from 6 cents in 2010 all the way to over $7,000. Most nonprofits heard about it in 2017, so they want to get out. So yeah, auto conversion out of the cryptocurrency. And then the second thing is the tax receipt, which also explains the donor side of it. So automating the tax receipt on behalf of the nonprofit, they don't have to pull those transaction records, figure out what they need to get to people, link an email. So pretty much what we do is just by having dynamic wallet addresses generating in the widget via their institutional crypto accounts, every donor comes through a different portal. If they put in their email to get a tax receipt, that email is linked to that one-time use wallet. So anytime a donation hits that wallet, even if they went back to it a year later and wanted to donate through the same path, it would just be linked for them, and they would get tax receipts generated. So that's kind of the process. Donor gets all the information they need to present to the IRS. They can navigate through our widget. Almost all of our clients allow anonymous options where you can just put in an email. It doesn't have to have your name in it or anything. All the information can come to you. But you have what you need to report to the IRS, which makes the nonprofit feel comfortable in the sense that, okay, if they're taking this information and going to the IRS with it, we can feel comfortable with the people who are coming to give in the first place, because there is some reporting.
So what are the credentials you look for in the nonprofits that work with Giving Block, right? Or like partnerships that you've like kind of acquired? I saw Watford was definitely like one you guys have posted about. Me and a buddy were over there last October, I believe. We were at a Watford Chelsea game. I'm not a Watford fan myself. I know I put that in there, but I liked the stadium. I liked the people. I saw the Bitcoin logo. So what are the credentials that you guys look for in not only like partnerships where you're working with something like a Watford, or but also kind of the nonprofits that you target to work with the Giving Block?
Yeah, I mean, on the crypto side of the partnerships, companies like Sportsbet that are working with, Watford and other companies, their angle on things like that is very similar to us in the sense that their marketing is targeted at growing their user base and growing adoption, right? So putting things like the Bitcoin on the sleeve, that's going to get a lot of people in the stadium Googling, what is Bitcoin or what is this thing on the jersey? So similar to, nonprofits, crypto companies who want, some broader exposure to the average person that might be donating to a nonprofit. This is kind of a unique way to get that exposure. And of course, on our end, we're vetting those companies to make sure this isn't some ICO scam or whatever, right? So we make sure to do our research on that side. And then, of course, on the nonprofit side, same thing. I mean, they're looking to get access to a new donor pool, a new community, but we're also making sure they're legitimate charities too. So we'll use sites like Charity Navigator and GuideStar to review their financials and their leadership team, to vet them. Make sure that they're doing what they say they are. And then they've also got to go through a compliance process with our back-end partner, Gemini, to vet them that way too.
Are there specific regions that maybe are more apt to crypto adoption that you guys are seeing right now? Is Africa looking like the country where you guys have the most nonprofits and charities that are kind of reaching out or that are trying to be a part of these programs? Where like geographically are a lot of these charities coming from?
Yeah, for us, possibly because of the nature of our company and the way we do our communications, the fact we're based in DC, most of it is US based nonprofits, but a lot of them are international. In terms of the communities they serve. So like a Save the Children, SOS Children's Villages, they have what's called a federated model with kind of an overhanging organization and then chapters that go elsewhere and kind of license it out and do independent fundraising and provide resources, kind of all about. But we get a lot of inquiries from Africa, for sure. And then we get, I would say the second thing for sure is probably Europe with a heavy interest from UK, but it could also be because of English related communications. But yeah, mostly in the US, there's like a much larger donor pool. So I think they're seeing the success of US organizations and just kind of the classic first mover thing where US organizations have more resources. They're a little bit more dialed in, a little more tech savvy than other nonprofits. They're kind of stepping up first.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. And even if you take it more to the user side, right? One of the questions that we were throwing around before the podcast was definitely what other cryptocurrencies can be donated. So is it just Bitcoin, or perhaps users or investors have made a ton of money in one altcoin and are looking to donate something like a Tezos or an EOS, right? How far kind of down that top 100 coin market cap list are you guys working with that conversion feature where a user or investor can donate some of a non-Bitcoin asset?
Yeah, right now by default, we're setting them up with Bitcoin, ETH, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, Zcash, and the Gemini dollar. And that's mainly because those have all been sort of, vetted by Gemini. They're trading on the exchange we're using as our backend. So as they add new assets, we'll be able to support new ones as well. They recently announced they're going to support BAT and Link, Orchid, and DAI. So those will be next on our list to take a look at for integrations. But there have been some cases where, a donor might reach out and say, hey, I made a lot of money in whatever cryptocurrency. Could you kind of, work it out to make it a one-time donation in this other one? Usually we can get that set up for the nonprofit. Got a little button on the widget where people can request another cryptocurrency. And we can kind of, privately work that out with them to make it happen.
Got it. That's awesome. Yeah. So, kind of continually expanding, but doing it in a way with a trusted partner. So, maybe you can offload some of that, some of that due diligence to Gemini. And obviously they've done some awesome things in the space as well. So kind of shifting gears here. I had the pleasure of participating in the charity poker tournament that you guys have put on. I think this was the second one to date. It was a lot of fun. I got quite a bit, lucky. I'm not the best poker player, even though I love it and love to lose money to other people who actually know how to play. But I was fortunate enough to make it into that top 50 and got to play with Catherine Coley, the CEO of Binance US, George from Balance, who I believe is the CEO over there. I think Tone Vase was on my table at one point. So, it was really cool to kind of play with other crypto enthusiasts. I think I was also playing with gentleman from Polymath, right? To then, as I progressed through the tournament, to play with some really notable talking heads or other enthusiast traders, CEOs in the space. So can you give us some background on how this poker tournament came about, right? Where was the idea for it, and what are the plans for it in the future?
Yeah, it actually started with a website inquiry that we got, Chris from Pioneer Club, who had reached out to me. And he pretty much wrote this email. We get these sometimes, and the way that he wrote it, he was so fired up to get involved with the campaign. We looked at the first email and we were like, this guy might not be legit for how helpful he seems to be being right out of the gate. And I jumped on a call with him, and then it was immediately evident that he was, and he pretty much just wanted to connect us with some interesting people in the crypto space and start organizing ways to help us fundraise. The poker front, it's really, I guess, kind of a lot of what we do, where we try to find and identify stuff that the crypto community is interested in that can raise money for nonprofits, rather than trying to just take traditional nonprofit fundraising systems and communications and just hammer it down the crypto community's throat. So like the live stream concerts, these poker tournaments, we did something called Bitcoin Tuesday, a lot of interesting communications around it, equivalent of Giving Tuesday. But yeah, the poker thing is really just because Tonebase and everyone else in the crypto community, that heavy communications we've seen around poker, and that they were interested in it. And then we quickly found out it's something that a lot of people, have fun doing, and it's crypto kind of centric, and people could pay in crypto, they could pay in cash, and there was something they could actually win. The majority of people donated their proceeds. And then the other thing, I guess, would be the recurring aspect of it. It doesn't have to be a one-off. So we could turn it into a series like we'd like to do with the concert.
Yeah, I want to hear about that concert here in a second, but it's interesting that you mentioned that psychological aspect of not ramming crypto donations down the crypto community's throat. We had a buddy that worked with us at ICO Alert. His name was Ryan Dennis. He was super interested in like charitable donations and foundations and things like this. I think he was even doing a report for like AidCoin, which was doing something with ICOs. And I don't know how much you're knowledgeable about that, but he was always talking about the fact that the crypto community is kind of donation averse because, again, like you pointed out earlier, we're hodlers or we're traders, and maybe the altruism isn't there specifically. So finding ways to get people involved on their level is definitely a good thing. But let's talk about that. Let's talk about that live stream concert that you're trying to do on May 5th, I believe. What are you guys doing there, and can you take us through it?
Yeah, Alex is more knowledgeable on the concert. Just one thing before we jump off that last piece, though, on the altruism versus being logical about it. Alex kind of mentioned it, but just to be explicit about it, jumping between cryptocurrencies is a taxable event. So when you said like, oh, can they only give Bitcoin or other things? If we only took Bitcoin, like most nonprofits do, then everyone and every other cryptocurrency would trigger a taxable event going into Bitcoin just to move crypto. So you lose the tax incentive entirely. So we like to communicate directly around the tax incentive. It doesn't have to be just because you're a nice person. That's how you pick your nonprofit, but you can also be smart about it. And we don't steer away from that. And then the last thing is same reason that moving out of your altcoin into Bitcoin is a taxable event. Charitable tokens that are like designed in these systems for donating to charity, moving from your appreciated crypto into that charity token is a taxable event. So by creating those projects, you erase the tax incentive for donors to give crypto. So they drive us up.
So you weren't an AidCoin investor then, I'm guessing.
It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, but Alex knows a lot more about the concert to answer your question.
Yeah. On the concert front, so that's going to be on, Tuesday, a week from today, May 5th. General idea is we're going to have a handful of different artists, mostly EDM ones, performing for about an hour each, and people will be able to, tune in and donate both crypto and cash. Cointelegraph is going to be playing a really active role in helping promote that and get the word out. But, Giving Tuesday is typically only once a year, but they're doing what is called Giving Tuesday now this year for the first time ever. So it's essentially a second Giving Tuesday, but specific to COVID relief. So we're partnering with them on this to kind of add a unique spin to it with the crypto component, but also have an entertainment feature to it. So we've got different groups in the crypto community coming together to help throw that together, and we'll be putting out some press about that today. But yeah, definitely be on the lookout for that on next Tuesday, May 5th.
That's awesome, man. You guys are doing a lot of work inside the crypto community. I'm interested to see like where you guys see in like 1 to 2 years where you see the giving block. And I also want to kind of like hop out and talk more general crypto market scene as you guys have been around for a little while. So like 1 to 2 years down the road, what does the giving block look like? What are you guys doing within the cryptocurrency space? And are you guys specifically focused on the crypto community like 100%, or are you actually maybe targeting others that are just donating via fiat and things like that?
Yeah. So we have a couple things going for us on that front. Alex mentioned it, but people don't like parting with crypto. It doesn't really make sense to spend crypto versus dollars. Dollars go down, crypto for the most part as a marketplace. Obviously, it goes up. So it's something that's going to continue to appreciate. So we don't think the commercial side, until you get stablecoin adoption, is going to make a whole lot of sense in terms of transferring assets. What works for us is the tax incentive. So we actually have a model in place where people do or are rather incentivized to transfer crypto more than they would cash, which I think is unique to the charity sector. The other thing is, because of the rate of adoption of crypto users, the number of crypto users is going up faster than price changes are keeping up with. So in other words, despite the fact that since 2017, the price has gone from 20,000 to 7,000 and something, so many people have bought crypto between that period at prices below this current, let's say $7,500 number, that there are more people tax incentivized to donate crypto today than there were back when the price was more than double. So the user base is going to continue to grow. So on the crypto front, we want to set up more nonprofits for sure. We want to integrate with different cryptocurrency solutions providers, and the same thing with nonprofit fundraising platforms, CRMs, other stuff out there. We're going to keep trying to grow out the crypto side. In terms of fiat donations, for sure, just because, again, the educational barrier is so bad. We think there's probably got to be something like 75% of the people who would come through our platform and donate are saying, I don't want to give up my Bitcoin, because they're just unaware of the tax incentive at this point. So yeah, we're working on something with MoonPay currently, and then other ways to take credit cards and fiat as well.
Beautiful. That's awesome. You guys are doing some fantastic things. And like I said, love the poker tournament. Interested to see the concert on May 5th and obviously where you guys go in the future here in 2020 and beyond. Switching gears here again a little bit, talking just kind of general crypto market. Like you guys said, you hopped in kind of at the peak, right? At end of 2017, beginning of 2018. We've had definitely a rough year in 2018. We saw some growth in 2019. I think Bitcoin, the price of it got to almost 14K. And then obviously just complete chaos in 2020, both in crypto and in the traditional market. But the thing that everybody seems to be focusing on here now, coming up on about May 12th, is obviously the Bitcoin halving, right? Google trends are exploding. We saw a giant boom in $1,200 BTC purchases on Coinbase, a la the stimulus check that people were receiving, and general sentiment is pretty bullish for crypto. So maybe you guys lean that way, maybe you lean more bearish. But Alex, starting with you, just in general, right? What are some of the trends that you're seeing for crypto, and where do you see the space as a whole, or the price of Bitcoin going for the rest of 2020? Obviously, none of this is financial advice.
Yeah, I mean, despite the price being relatively, slightly up, but relatively flat, the last week or two, crypto seems to be booming, right? Record numbers of people signing up on exchanges, like you said, depositing their stimulus check. So the narrative has really opened up, I think, for the average person when they see, the Fed and Treasury, printing trillions of dollars out of thin air. It really makes people think about money in a way they've never thought about it before. And I think this is a little different in terms of, of course, in 2008 and that financial crisis, tons of money has been printed between now and then too. But for some reason, this time around, there's a much more real fear of inflation and the value of money that I don't think there was the first time. So I think now, it's kind of Bitcoin and crypto's time to shine. I think short term, it's really hard to say because people aren't going to necessarily buy crypto if they're worried about where their next meal is coming from or how they're going to pay for rent. But longer term, as people really start to learn more about it and see this crisis kind of unfold, I think it will become, more and more of sort of at least a hedge or kind of a safe haven. But as long as the economy keeps crashing, it's tough to make a case that, Bitcoin is going to skyrocket in the next month,
Pat, any thoughts there?
I mean, first and foremost, he knows significantly more than I do about all this stuff. Like I said, I tried to be competitive with him about crypto trading. I'm competitive about everything, and it didn't go well at all. But yeah, I agree with this take for the most part. The education barrier between people knowing who are outside of the crypto space that crypto, let's say Bitcoin, can't be printed at the rate of the US dollar. It can't be printed into, obsolescence. whether or not that knowledge base is there, but they don't have the capital to move into it, where if you have a certain amount of capital that you're trying to preserve, but you don't have it in crypto now because you have it, it's liquid, whatever else, is that actually going to move into crypto if the economy keeps going down? I don't think the education level is high enough there yet. So I think people will run away from it, even who have crypto, because they bought it in late 2017 or their grandson convinced them to get it, but they really don't understand like the fundamental difference as dollars get printed, that they actually have an advantage there. So like being right isn't enough to win an argument is probably the best perspective on it.
Yeah, I love the what you guys were talking about earlier in the episode, where you were kind of almost establishing like education proxies by setting up these different charities that accepted crypto, right? Because they're teaching education, boots on the ground in their location, which is something that obviously like we would never be able to do. Maybe they don't have internet access where they're accepting those charity donations. So this is awesome, awesome stuff here, man. I do have a specific question for you then, since you said you guys were kind of competing and you said you kind of got wrecked. What are some of the, what are one or two projects that you got involved in? And I'll give you one of mine and you show me yours, I'll show you mine, kind of deal.
Okay. Well, I mean, pretty much what happened is like Alex said, like when you get into it, I got in it was either late October, early November, 2017. So I thought I was a genius. So the second thing that compounded that was like, I'm not so dumb as to think if everything's going up at a certain rate that I'm a genius just because I bought it. I was actually timing purchases pure happenstance, like based on what I would read like a little bit about Dash and I'd be like, oh, that one's fast. And then I would buy that and I would think everyone found out about it that day. And then that would go up like a lot. And I was like, God, I'm like totally in the loop. I'm picking good shit. I bought a fair amount of XRP, and then that started outpacing the market just because people were, I don't know, talking about something, banks getting into it that weren't originally a part of the project. So little things like that. And then on the ICO front, Alex was pretty much advising me on that, but I would just send him, white papers on a project. I'd be like, it would be something like Zill with sharding. And I would be like, this project's doing sharding, they're doing X, Y, and Z. And he'd be like, okay, 2 projects tried that last year. One did it the year before, same advisors, it never works. It runs into this hurdle. And I'd be like, just you take my money and figure it out. That's kind of how my thing went. So I probably, like Alex said, probably went 3X on the money that I put in. And then as it started dropping, I was like, well, there's no way it's not going to keep going up because that's what this shit does. It's a money machine. So yeah, that was mine. But tell me, what were you putting capital into?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say I was part of that same boat that expected something to go up forever. So I will give you the good advice that it's not a loss if you don't sell. So I still hold those bags. I hold a lot of EOS. That's something that I held from all the way up to $20 now down to whatever it is today, something like $250. So definitely unrealized gains there. But Swissborg, I got into the Swissborg ICO. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. It was all based on marketing hype, right? It was like whoever had the best marketing was going to win. And it didn't really matter like what the tech was, because if you had great marketing, that price was going to boom because the retail was getting in. So yeah, Swissborg was a huge one. Can we say yours on air, Mike?
The Substratum one?
Oh, Substratum was another.
Substratum's a great story. Substratum was in the news, I think last year, because they were using the remaining ICO funds they had raised to day trade to try to kind of pull themselves out of the hole, which, if I imagine did not go well based on the current market cap and the current price. But Substratum back in the day was as Q said, right, a highly touted project. It was marketed heavy, and I think we bought a bunch of it for around 3 or 4 cents. And of course, like everything else, it did really well. It was up to 30 some cents. And at the time they were rolling out kind of the next generation internet, as they were calling it, right? They were going to re-decentralize the internet. There was also a very important meeting. I think it was with the FCC potentially on Verizon and a handful of others kind of throttling internet. And there were some actually really important kind of, landmark cases around internet privacy and kind of data rights in these things. So I remember in the ICO alert offices one morning, we were actually watching the case, like whether it was in Congress or the Senate or whatever it was, just trying to figure out kind of where it was headed. And I think I ended up selling mine for a nice gain, like somewhere around 30 or 40 cents after buying it for 3 or 4 cents. So I was happy, right? And I think this was maybe October Q.
Yeah, it was like October timeframe.
October 2017. So 6 weeks later, the thing was worth like $3. You know,
for no reason.
Fundamentally, nothing had changed. Things had probably gotten worse, but you know, when everything pumps, everything pumps.
Yeah, now it's at like 1/100 of a penny. So yeah, RIP Substratum. I think Eth Horse was in there somewhere. I was hoping for an Eth Horse story, but yeah, I mean, all things considered, what a fun time. Those were great days. Also poor days as well. But anyways, let's talk a little bit more about what you guys are kind of seeing. I did have a question from like a charity aspect and a donations aspect. What is the atmosphere when you have kind of this global pandemic issue that is kind of affecting everyone, right? Like in these kind of environments, what does the donation in charity industry kind of look like? Is it just a huge, red candle downwards for the amount of volume that you guys see?
I mean, I think most charities are hurting, just like most businesses are hurting, right? Especially ones that rely a lot on physical events, like, let's say a charity walk or gala, any sort of in-person event. Of course, they've had to cancel all of those for the spring and likely a lot of the summer. So they're all kind of scrambling to look for new ways to either diversify their revenue or offset revenue. And crypto seems to be one of those ways they're doing that. I mean, we're seeing a huge boom in demand from the nonprofits for our services. And even on the donor side of things, at least for crypto, we're seeing, a huge spike in volume, because I think people in the crypto community were really early in terms of tracking COVID. And they really feel like they want to be a part of, in some way supporting relief efforts. So everyone seems to be, chipping in and doing their little part, whether it's them personally donating something or, a company sponsorship or major gift. So we've been really amazed by how generous the crypto community has been so far.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah. Really, I think what you're touching on, and it's something that we were talking about on the live show that we do every Monday, is kind of this like digitization that is being forced upon people, whether it's live stream concerts or digital events like the poker tournament. It's really everyone's only option at this point, right? Maybe you're going out and you're picking up food from a local restaurant, or you're picking up groceries, but recreational activities or any sort of kind of non-work activity has moved completely digital. Watching movies, anything else, right? It's all in your home and it's all digital. So as you guys kind of look out into the future, without predicting when this kind of slows down, when things try to get back to normal, right? Are there other things that you're looking at as potential opportunities with this kind of move of digitization past the concert series, right? Like what is kind of what's the dream event that you guys can put on, or what's kind of the big trend that you think might be coming?
Yeah, I would say it's not like a big explosive event that we're looking for. We're looking for consistency. So just because the tax incentive piece of cryptocurrency fundraising makes it less predictable, when it goes on a run, people talk to their advisors more, and they talk to their advisors more, especially if they're heading into end of year, tax season, and it overlaps with more aggressive nonprofit messaging. Like then we're going to see peaks and valleys. So like as a group trying to run a business here and get nonprofits actually fundraising and get them all being successful every month of the year, recruiting more nonprofits and letting that grow into like an actual ecosystem. We're definitely looking for nonprofits to just talk about it more. And I would say it's not really a big event. It's getting more crypto companies aware of the value of working with nonprofits. So that's happening more now in this campaign than ever. But like little things we do is say our marketing toolkits. Every nonprofit that we work with who's a part of the campaign gets a constantly updating list of the Twitter handles for all of the partners who have put up capital or helping us market, they're running ads. And then nonprofits are advised to tweet thank yous to all of these partners. And pretty much in doing that, we just tell them it's a basic formula. If you tweet a thank you at, say, Gemini, and they retweet that or they comment and they start engaging with your content, like that Gemini audience is worth more in terms of potential crypto donors than anything we can do with their audience individually. And then the partners, knowing if a Save the Children is tweeting at them constantly with 2.8 million followers, like that's fantastic as well. So we're working with a lot more corporate partners. So I guess the short answer would be get as many companies that we haven't worked with yet in the crypto space to start either putting up capital, running ads, working with the nonprofits, and seeing the value there.
I know picking favorites of like nonprofits that are on your kind of roster there are kind of like picking kids. Like you can't really pick a favorite. But what are some maybe that are under the radar? And then when I'm donating via the Giving Block, can I choose exactly which charity that I want to give to, or does it kind of go to a pool and then get dispersed amongst the various like different charities? So those two questions there, kind of like favorite, maybe under the radar nonprofits that you guys work with, and then from a like user perspective, can I pick the specific charity to donate to?
Yeah. So in terms of, what causes we like the most, I mean, it's so variable because such a wide range of things. Like if we're talking about COVID specifically right now, we've got awesome groups like, for example, Save the Children and No Kid Hungry, who are providing meals to kids who would normally get them in school, but are essentially going hungry now because they're not in school. Or there's groups like the Water Project who are focused more on, hygiene to keep COVID from spreading. Or groups kind of more on the medical side, like International Medical Corps, providing their medical expertise and supplies all around the world. So it really depends on which kind of different impact of the virus you want to focus on. But then to answer your second question, all the funds always go directly to the nonprofit you choose. So each nonprofit has their own institutional account on the back end, and on the front end, there's a widget on our website for each nonprofit. So none of the funds ever pass through us. It's always direct to the nonprofit. And if you go onto our platform page, you'll see a little mini profile for each nonprofit. There'll be a little video there about them, some background information, link to their website, and then a widget you can click through. So you can pick, Bitcoin, ETH, Litecoin, whatever you want to donate, and then it will show you their wallet address in that last step there. So you can, make sure it's going direct to that nonprofit.
You handled that answer with flying colors. I know it's hard to pick one or two. I'm always interested in kind of like the infrastructure that's set up on site, right? So you guys have like a nonprofit that's set up maybe in Africa, like we talked about earlier. How does the off-ramp actually occur on site when you're working with these different nonprofits?
Yeah. So because we're a small team here, we don't currently set up nonprofits who say only have banking infrastructure in, let's say, a country in Africa. Let's say it's Nigeria or whatever's not currently supported by Gemini on the back end. But we're like really careful when we take time with all the nonprofits trying to figure out if sometimes they fundraise under an umbrella organization that has US 501c3 status. A lot of nonprofits, especially larger ones, if they're prominent and they have an established record, they've usually got a connection to a 501c3, meaning they can accept donations from US donors that are tax deductible. So a lot of the groups in Africa, especially if they're prominent or anywhere in the world, they're going to have a system set up in place where they have that 501c3 status, can fundraise through, say, a US bank account, and then get donations to the boots on the ground. So in terms of the off-ramp, we use wherever there are off-ramps for Gemini currently, and groups that fall outside of that purview, we just talk to them and try to figure out if they're connected with someone who has that.
What else are you guys looking at within the crypto and blockchain industry as far as like specific sectors? Are you guys looking at, supply chain? Are you guys looking at NFTs? Are you looking at gaming? Are you looking at lending and borrowing? What other things interest you within the crypto and blockchain space?
Yeah, I think you touched on two important points, both gaming and the NFT space. We're working on a couple different partnerships in that space, one of which I've got to check. It's going to be mid-May. We're doing our first kind of charity esports event where you can donate crypto. And that's actually going to be sponsored by Dharma, and we're doing it in partnership with a company called Mazer Gaming. So it'll be a cool esports tournament with prize money and, donation money going to the charities. I think there's a kind of a natural overlap with esports and crypto. That's going to become more and more important for what we're doing. And then we're talking to groups like Nifty Gateway, the NFT company that Gemini purchased, about doing some sort of, charity drop. We actually, when we did this last round of matching with Gitcoin about a month ago, we saw a lot of demand for an artist who actually was working to help support our crypto COVID-19 campaign, where they would auction off their NFTs and donate, either half or all of the proceeds to the nonprofits participating. And in some cases, people were spending like over $1,000 buying those NFTs, and then she was donating the funds to the nonprofits on the other end. So I think those are definitely two areas of growth for us this year.
Got it. Two final questions here for you. One's standard, we ask every guest, but before we get there, when can Q donate his CryptoKitties that he's been holding on to for so long? Are you guys going to allow people to donate NFTs, you think?
I don't know if we'll be able to donate the NFTs directly anytime soon. I guess it'll depend on how the back end progresses with the exchanges and stuff like that. If they add that functionality, then we could, but right now we're not really set up to be able to support that.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. That was more of a jab at Q's CryptoKitties than anything. But yeah,
once a month at least.
Right. Starting with you, Pat. We ask every guest this question. It doesn't have to be crypto related. It could be any genre, any interest. But starting with you, one book recommendation, and then we'll get Alex's book recommendation as well.
Oh God. I guess I would say it's going to sound like a bizarre answer, but The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins. So he's kind of a zoologist turned biologist turned like evolutionary psychologist turned kind of he's a ranter about atheism and other stuff like that. But the book isn't religiously based. The idea is pretty much talking about how everything you can find in human behavior is linked back to evolutionary principles and your genes trying to replicate. And it's cool to kind of see the biological underpinnings of it. And I think it's a good book for kind of learning how to interface with people and incentive models.
Got it. Alex?
Yeah, one book I always recommend to, especially if it's someone I'm trying to get more into crypto, is Bitcoin Billionaires. That's the story about kind of the early days of the Winklevoss twins and how they got their start in crypto. But it tells a really cool story while also teaching people about, kind of the value proposition behind Bitcoin and crypto. So I've gotten my mom and girlfriend and a couple other people in the nonprofit space to read it, and it really gets people hooked. But it's still, even if you're already, knowledgeable about crypto, it's still a really cool story. So I definitely recommend it.
Is that how you wrangled Pat here?
No.
Bitcoin white paper.
Bitcoin white paper. Gotcha. I think you mentioned that. Guys, we're just joking here. So we had a great episode, man. This was like one of the more, lively episodes that we've had. So we appreciate you guys coming on. We'll for sure be taking part in that charity poker tournament, the round 3 that you guys are hosting. We'll also, hopefully link back up with you maybe here in like the next 3 or 4 months, maybe have you guys back on the channel to talk about everything you guys have been up to in that time frame. So unless you guys have something else, man, this was awesome. Can you leave just any type of information on where they can find information about you guys or the Giving Block on Twitter, websites, all that good stuff?
Yeah, for the Giving Block, it's just thegivingblock.com. If you're looking for our platform, knock on wood, in very short order, that'll be integrated to thegivingblock.com. But right now it's bitcointuesday.org and bitcointuesday.org/COVID-19 is the current ongoing campaign. On Twitter, it's just at The Giving Block. You can find us across social channels there. And Twitter is the best place to follow us, where we're most active. And then my personal handle on Twitter is Pat Duffy.
Yeah, and then I'll just add to that, my personal Twitter handle is Alex Wilson TGB. And we can put those links over too afterwards if that's helpful.
A company man.
For sure. We'll throw it in the description. And like Q said, thanks again. This is some awesome stuff you guys are doing, and congratulations on all the success thus far. Make sure that my cards in that third poker charity are a little better than last time. Maybe I can hop in that top 10. But yeah, guys, really appreciate the time.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure to check out Layer 1 on all the audio and video platforms listed in the description. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next week.